What do you do with all this pastel dust? Of course, you make pastels. I'm going to show you how to make grays from all that pastel dust that collects under your easel. So stay tuned. If you're liking these videos, hit the thumbs up or like button. It goes a long way to showing it to other people. So these are like the little plastic dessert cups. So we're going to take these 3 different collections of dust and show you how to make your own gray pastels. First of all, know that even manufacturers such as Gamblin oil manufacturers, this is Torrid Gray. And Torrid Gray, every year they put out a tube like this. They've been doing it for I don't know how many years, but they clean out their air filters in their pigment room and their mixing room, and each year they produce a Torrid Gray. But every year the color is different. I don't know if you can see it here, but the gray on the bottom is 1 year different than the gray on the top. And I'll try to put a close-up in here, but you'll see that the bottom is a lot more violet. Now this particular set of pigments that I got, you can see has various, as I've dumped the different trays from underneath my collection easel, they have different shades of violets and reds in there. So before we do anything, we want to mix that up and make it, and make it all one color, whatever color it's going to turn out to be. But whenever you collect your pastels, unless you're painting something that is all one color, the dust that you collect over time is going to make a gray. The difference is, and you'll have to look at my other video, the difference is on neutral grays versus color bias grays. But basically, whatever colors are predominant, your gray will be a color bias towards that dominant color. Just like I showed you with Gamblin's Torrid, that one of them was violet, that had a color bias of violet. And this will too, because it's got a lot of blue violets and red violets in it. This one is a lot more lavender and has a few more reds and yellows in it, and it, as you can see, is a different value than the other grays that I'm going to get. So let's get started. The first thing you're going to want to do is get some distilled water rather than tap water, which may have minerals in it, may have chlorides in it if you are close to a treatment plant, rather than well water, and all those things can affect how the gums that were in your original stick are going to react to the addition of water. So distilled water will help you have maybe a few less problems. I have made it with regular tap water, and I've had some crumbling issues. Okay, I've poured distilled water into this. I'm just going to put a few drops in here. Doesn't take very much, and just to start we're trying to reach a pasty stage. The water will be repelled from the dust, so if you've ever mixed mortar or concrete out of a bag, you know that it takes a while before the water breaks that surface tension and bonds with the sand and the other things that are in the mortar. Now I'm starting to get a few little balls there. If you've ever made, and I've got some brush hairs that have fallen off apparently in there, so I'll try to get as many of those out as I can. When I paint, I use these cheap brushes. As you can see, just a few drops. We're starting to get a few of the little balls, and I'm just going to try to get a few more drops. But just like mixing mortar or mixing a bread dough, it's real easy to get too much water in there. So we'll just keep stirring and trying to mix this up until we get to the point that it will become kind of a paste. Down in the comments, I am going to put the link to Roche, which is a maker of pastels in France, and there's a great Business Insider video, and if you'll link on that, you'll see how the professionals make it. They are adding the special clay and additives that go into pastels and they make a paste, and it's kind of watery and it's really interesting. I'm not going to use that process, but what they do is after they make the paste as pasty as they can with their formula, they stick it in a rag and pound on it to try to get water to soak up out of the paste, and then they stick it in a press, like a book press. After a certain amount of time, it comes out looking like taffy, and then they can roll it, they can hand shape it. This particular company doesn't use molds or extruders, so they basically weigh it out and measure it and hand roll the pastels. We're not doing that. We're just trying to reconstitute a few grays. And the advantage of making your own grays from your own dust is you will be making a pastel that has the same colors that you use in your box. So a lot of times when you buy a pastel that is manufactured, the pastel has colors in it that are created to make it warm or cool, and they're not necessarily the other colors you have in your box. So sometimes you pick up the wrong stick, you will end up with a pastel that you have to do a little work with in order to get it to go along with your painting. So that's one of the advantages. Now look how that's balling up nice. Can you see that ball? All right. And now we're going to do the lighter color, the same process. Basically add a few drops, stir it in, try to get the water tension to go away. You can see it darkens as you do this, but again, when the water evaporates and it gets its shape, it should come back to the colors or the values that you have. Now, if you get one too wet, all right, this enamel paper I put on is somewhat like what magazine covers are, slick cover magazines. Those are enamel. If you can find one that's got a white area, you can roll it on that white area. I wouldn't use the ink because if it sucks up some of that ink, you'll have an irregular color added to your pastel. But now, I was talking and there's a lot of water tension going on in this one, and I might have gotten too much water, I don't know. The jury's still out to know whether when I was talking I added too much water or not, but a word of caution: be sure that you get to this crumbly stage and where it balls up before you add more water, because what happens is the water goes down to the bottom and the pastel floats on top, and the surface tension is so great that you will think that you need more water and you don't. But I was talking, trying to explain the video, and got too much water in there on my second little dump. You can see this is, as I mix it up, is becoming very, very runny. Now, pastel makers in history, you can look it up, Google it, there's plenty of information out there. You can buy the actual, it starts with a T, I can't pronounce it, but there's an actual kind of clay binder that pastel recipes online, you'll see you add so many grams of pigment and so many grams of this binder, and you'll then get a big wad like we did that last time. This is going to be too runny. So I'm going to experiment and see if by rolling it out on this enamel paper, if I can let it set there and soak up and then come back and maybe be able to roll it. Okay, I've taken an old bed sheet and I put it on here and started to roll this around. When you put the pastel, this is that wet pastel, and I wanted to see, after watching that video of the Roche company and how they use fabric to take the materials out, this is a tightly woven bed sheet that was just a in my scrap rag. It was clean before I started rolling this on here, so don't think that I just grabbed an old one that's got all sorts of different pastel colors on it. But as you can see, if you don't press too hard, it will pick up the moisture out of there. But if you don't press too hard, you can roll some of this excess moisture out of there as you work it, and then we'll stick it on the piece of plastic and turn it into a stick once I get some of this kneaded out of here. I'm just kind of rolling it around trying to get the excess water off of it right now. I forgot to mention that you can also, if you bought pigments or you're not getting good binding using the pigment or the binder that's already in your dust, you can add a little flour and make a flour paste that you can add pigment to. That has been done in the past in history, as well as the natural wallpaper paste, not the ones with polymer in it. So those are some binders if you can't get your hands on a small quantity of the binder that pastel manufacturers use. But I've never had so bad a crumbling problems. The binder that's in the pastel dust seems to bond just fine. And you can see we're starting to get a little bit more, and I'll just off camera turn this thing into a roll as soon as I get some more water out of it. Okay, there you go. There's 3 different shades of gray just from the pastel dust collected over a couple months underneath my easel. As you can see, this was the wet one, and it's going to have a little more coarse, and I might have some cracking problems with that. But these 2 turned out really, really nice. The first one was the best. I controlled the water in these 2 much, much better, and they rolled out without having to use a piece of fabric like this one did. So I've got 3 new grays that I can add to my box, and I can't have enough grays. The more shades of gray and the subtleties of gray, the better I like it. That's it. I showed you how to make some gray pastels out of your pastel dust, and if you enjoy this video, please keep watching and subscribe. At least hit the like button so others can see it. So long, and I'll have another topic for you. Take care. Bye-bye.